Last week, I had the opportunity to live my dream for a week as a racing driver. I competed in Trofeo Margutti in the KZ2 category, and I was facing a lot of really high-level drivers, top drivers that were competing for world championships at the time. So I knew that the competition would be really hard going into it, but nonetheless, I was just filled with excitement, filled with energy, and also curiosity to see how ACC might have helped me be better as a driver. So I'm gonna try to be brief with how everything went and how my experience was. As you can probably tell, the first day was really exciting for me. I was finally back on track. I was super happy to meet the team, my mechanic, the person responsible for telemetry, my kart as well, and the track itself. I was just super excited to just see it and go into it as soon as possible. So the moment that we made the first few tweaks in the car, just so it fits properly with my body measurements, that being the steering wheel, if it's too close or too far away from me, if the angle of the steering wheel is good enough, if the brake pedal is in a good position, or the gas pedal as well, all those things I needed to kind of tweak in the beginning just to make sure that everything feels as comfortable as possible. So once I go in, I don't have to deal with anything extra other than just focusing on driving. So I went in, I did a few laps, and boy oh boy did I miss that feeling. And I hadn't practiced on track for a long time. So yeah, I was just super excited. I was just filled with energy at the time doing the first few laps. They weren't the fastest laps, but it was a good introduction to what I was going to be facing moving forward, of course. So after the first lap was done, I needed to talk to the mechanics, make sure that the engine and the chassis is to my liking, if it's too oversteery, if it's too understeery, where exactly is it that I'm feeling the kart is not really reaching its full potential, or it's too hard for me to drive. Is it in corner entry, mid-corner? Is it during acceleration and the exit? All those things, and in which corners that would happen. Those were valuable information that I needed to give my mechanics, so they would be able to take my feedback and make the kart feel better. Of course, that's just one part of it, because another part is telemetry, where I would actually see if it's the actual kart that would be having this issue, or if it was just me driving improperly, and that's why I wouldn't be able to drive the kart fast enough, or properly. So going over telemetry a little bit, just to give you a brief example, a brief understanding of how it goes. It was basically a lot of numbers, a lot of data, graphs that showed the top speed, the minimum speed, the G-forces, the brake force that I was applying, how soft I am in acceleration, how hard I am in braking, how good I am with trail braking, my steering angle. All those things were provided through telemetry. There were some other things as well, but we didn't really focus on those things, like engine RPMs or the temperature of the engine. We would also look at those things just to make sure that we're not short shifting or reaching too high RPMs. But overall, the most important things were the braking points and the racing line. A lot of times I was not using the proper racing line, and in some corners I was braking a little bit less and a little bit sooner. So even though my minimum speed was the proper speed in mid-corner, I was still not maximizing the brake force during corner entry. So those were the first few things that I wanted to pay attention to, especially the racing line. That was basically the first day. Throughout the whole process, I was just jumping with energy almost, even in track, but even when I was not on track and just looking at telemetry and just speaking with the mechanics, the goal for me was just to maximize all and take all the experience that I could get from this day and the days following, of course. So even when I was on track, I was feeling super hyped. Even when I was out track and just talking to the mechanics and looking at telemetry, I was still super hyped. And yeah, that was just the end of the day, and I was just looking forward to continue with this excitement in the next day. In the second day, the process remained pretty much the same. The point was to focus on a few corners, make sure that we're taking them properly, make sure we're braking properly, also working in a few things with the mechanics and the setup. We made the engine a little bit more aggressive, but in the second day, we reached a point where, for some reason, my exit was bad. Not in terms of racing line, but only in terms of acceleration. So I would accelerate way later and also softer than everybody else. So then we decided to also place a GoPro to my kart and see how exactly I'm approaching the corner entry and if I'm rotating the car enough during entry and mid-corner phase so that I can accelerate sooner. A lot of us already believed that that was going to be the issue, and lo and behold, that's what the camera showed us as well. So on board, as I was driving, we were constantly seeing that compared to the other guys, I wasn't turning the kart enough. So then what I suggested was to make the car more oversteery in corner entry to do this. But the mechanics told me that that was already way too much what I was already having. So that's when I realized that, okay, that just means that I have to work on my driving. That's the only thing that's left here. Just keep on practicing and hope that it's enough practice to reach a good enough lap time so I make it up on qualifying, maybe make it into the final of the race. There were 77 drivers competing this race, so it was going to be hard if we were going to make it into the final, because only half of the people would make it. So yeah, that followed up in the third day as well. That was the day that we would also have a qualifying session and our first heat. I'll explain what a heat is in a little bit later. But for now, I just want to focus. Again, I was still really excited, really just trying to get in there and try to make the most out of the day. Everything showed in telemetry that I was getting closer and closer to the faster guys. All those things were really positive, although my lap time wasn't really improving that much. But just to see on the data that I'm really close to the other guys and the corners that I've been working on, that was really good to see. At some points I was actually even faster compared to the other guys, but overall there was still a lot of inconsistency. To give you an example, I was theoretically 0.5 faster than my actual lap time. So that means that if we take the fastest sectors from the whole session that I did and we put them all together, the lap time that I would make there would be faster, 0.5 faster than my fastest lap time overall, because I would screw up corners in one lap and then I would screw up other corners in another lap. So in that sense I wasn't consistent, but the data showed that if I was consistent in every single sector, that was a lap time that I could hit. So you know, at that point I just knew that it was all about practicing to figure out how I'm going to stay consistent. So yeah, I just needed time at that point, but qualifying was one session away, so I didn't really have the time to do that. But still, I didn't really care that much at that point. I just wanted to make the most out of it. So I went in with full of energy again, and I actually didn't do bad. I was not at the top half, but I was at the bottom half of the grid. But then again, I wasn't last, which what my team told me, that was an achievement in and of itself. If we think of the rest of the drivers, even if they weren't in that specific track, they were constantly practicing with their KZ2 karts and other tracks all the time. So coming into it, they had way more experience than I would ever dream of having. So yeah, I couldn't cover the gap just by being there for 3 days compared to a whole year of racing for those guys. But still, I'm just happy to see that I wasn't last. That was a good achievement for me. So I went into qualifying, and then it was the first heat. So let me just explain heats to you real quick. We're divided into smaller groups that compete against each other, and we get points. The people with the least amount of points make it into the final. So only half of the grid would make it into the final. That means 36 drivers out of the 72 or 77 drivers that were attending the competition. So it was important for me for each heat that was happening, I needed to be at the top half of the grid and not at the bottom half, even though qualifying kind of made me start at the bottom half. So just to summarize how all these heats went, in total we did 3 heats. Most of them I just maintained my position. Unfortunately, I was not really strategic in my first laps. I was thinking if I stayed on the inside in the first few laps in the corner entries, I wouldn't lose positions. Everybody had the same idea behind them, so they were all sticking to the inside. That meant because of the density that the inside of the corner had, people who actually went on the outside were carrying way more speed, and there was just, you know, an empty space for them to just pass a lot of drivers at the same time in the first corner. So that's what happened basically in all 3 heats. I was too, let's say, scared to go on the outside in the first lap because I was afraid that I was going to lose positions. That's normally what happens, but in these 3 heats, that's not what happened. So then it was just a matter of me fighting to get my positions back. the final heat, which wasn't really a heat, it was a second chance. So basically the drivers who didn't make it into the pre-final and the final, they could still get it into the final if they managed to land in the top 6 of that second chance race. The problem was that I was starting 32nd, so me reaching the top 6 from 32nd place seemed like, you know, something that would never happen ever unless a miracle happened. Not only because I was probably gonna be slower, but there's just a lot of overtaking to do it, and it's just impossible. But that still didn't stop me from giving it my all and just really fighting this time and taking bigger risks compared to my previous few races. Don't get me wrong, I did some cool moves here and there in the previous heats just to maintain my position, but it doesn't really come close to the second chance heat. It's cool to mention that 6 people didn't make it into the second chance, so at least I wasn't that far off the grid that I wouldn't really make it even into the second chance race. I made it into the second chance race, so I'd say I made it into my final. So yeah, I went in, the race started, I did a pretty good start, and then I had the experience from the previous heat to think of either staying on the inside or staying to the outside of this of the track in the first corner. As soon as I saw that everybody was sticking to the inside, I did what everybody did to me in the previous heats, and I went to the outside. And boy oh boy, did it work. I made it, and I passed a lot of drivers that way. Then it was just a matter of holding the position and try to chase the guys in front. Yeah, the first few laps, it was just about defending because some drivers were really aggressive and really close to me in the beginning. I didn't let them through. I was defending like hell, and I could see that I was also getting at the guys in front because they were also battling. As soon as I had some space in the back so I didn't have to defend that much, I just pushed to go to the front of the guys. And I dove into some corners and some hairpins. I was almost sliding and drifting sideways as I was passing the guys. I also did a overtake in the chicane. I wish you could have seen it. I mean, I do have onboard videos when I did practice sessions, but unfortunately during the race we weren't allowed to film anything. But, you know, just take it from me, it was really cool. Some people were really close to me after passing them, and they were able to keep up the pace and pass me, but then I also had the pace to pass them again immediately after the next corner came. So that was a really cool battle. There were also some incidents that happened, and overall I managed to pick up 14 positions in one race. That, I mean, not just for my experience, but overall, that was like the most overtakes that anyone did in my race, and that's a big number. I think my team was super happy with my results. I didn't make it into the final, but it wasn't really, you know, I was fine with it. I was just super happy that I just made it that far and I was able to actually compete against these guys, you know. My fear was that I was going to be too slow, that I wasn't really going to be like a competition to anybody. You know, I was just going to stay in the back of the grid, and people would almost lap me. I would have a huge gap with the guy in front, but that wasn't the case. I was really close with everybody. Still far off. I need way more training, and you know, my team also said it that if I do want to make it at the top, I need, you know, practice. I just need more practice. I need more days. But 3 days compared to a year of practice is just, you know, it's night and day difference. I did talk about my practice in the simulator, but you know, everybody told me that karts and cars are pretty different. I mean, you have a different chassis, we got different engines, different tires, different tracks, different racing lines. So all those things can't really be compared. The only comparison that you could make is maybe through racecraft and also improve your consistency. The theory overall is basically the same, but still not quite there. So if I want to be faster in karts, I needed to practice in karts. That's that's basically the end result. But at the end of the day, it was just a really beautiful experience. And even if, you know, my dream is to be like a GT3 driver, just being in track, man, just racing, even in KZ2, it was amazing. It was so beautiful. I'm super grateful to be there. After the race, Everybody was starting to pack up to go to the next race that was going to happen next week. So these guys are on the move all the time. So, you know, I didn't really have anything that I needed to do, so I just sat there waiting for the team to pack up their stuff. And as the sun was setting, I was just looking at the track. Everything was starting to go real quiet. It was really peaceful. I just took a moment to take it all in, and yeah, I really appreciate it. I am still really, really grateful to have these opportunities, even if they come in really, you know, just for a short period and maybe not as often as I would like. I was still so happy that, you know, I was able to do it. It was just a beautiful sight, and, you know, it was a little sad that it ended, but also it was also really beautiful, you know. I don't know how to explain it. It was just a lot of feeling. I was really emotional at that time. At the end of the day, you know, that was it. We packed up the next day, and now I'm here again. But yeah, overall, I'd say that I was super excited from the beginning to the middle till the end. That never stopped. Even now, talking to you guys about it, I'm still really excited. I'm just still really happy. I met some awesome people on track, and my mechanics and the telemetry guy, everybody in the team was awesome. We talked with different drivers. They also gave me some tips on how to improve my lap times in the track. I'm hoping that I'm gonna be able to do it again, but until then, I'm just gonna leave you with this story. And to everybody who's been supporting me so far, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.